Hello, acupuncturists. It's Lara Hullinghorst, your friendly neighborhood lobbyist. Pardon my appearance. Obviously, quarantine has not been good to me. But I'm also going to be looking down a bit because I want to read some of the things that I've written out and information that I've received about how, financially there are available options for acupuncture businesses to apply. So I'm literally just going to read this to you, which I know is very boring, sorry, but I want you to get accurate information, so I made sure to distill it. And yes, it looks like I have a globe on my head, but we're just gonna have to deal with that. All right, so here is the main thing that I think people need to know. That the banks have started processing something called the PPP loan. PPP is the Payroll Protection Program. And what this basically means is you can apply for this current SBA loan program, again, Payroll Protection Program, if you have employees that you will be able to keep on using 75% of the money that you gain from this program should you be accepted. If you do that after 8 weeks, that program turns from a loan to a grant, and therefore I know it's not like free money at this very difficult period of time, but it is free money. There are other ways you can spend your 25%, and we will get into that a little bit later in the program. But there is also an SBA disaster loan. EID is the hallmark of it, emergency disaster, or I'm sorry, EDL, emergency disaster loan. And that is a separate loan. Right now, we're being quoted 3.75% as the amount. However, that is not movable into a grant. That is not forgivable in any way. It's just a different kind of bridge. And there is confusion in the banking and grant community about whether or not that will interfere with a PPP loan. In other words, no double dipping I'm going to use that term a lot today. There is very large concern in the government and administrative community about people going in and getting two things for the price of one. Like, we don't need it right now, but that's a concern. So we just need to understand that that exists and work with what we have. So my recommendation for anyone who has payroll employees is to apply for that. You can also apply for that as a sole proprietor. So to get into that a little bit more deeply, if you have been using contract employees, 1099 employees as part of your business, and or you have commissioned sales employees, there is confusion again about how you can apply for that. However, recommendation from the banking officials I've spoken with is do not count your 1099 employees, because that can put you in a bucket that they're looking at of, is that 1099 employee double dipping? Because the 1099 employee can also register for this program as a sole proprietor or a 1099, many of which overlap. Take me for example. Sorry, it's been a long week. But you can, the emergency disaster loan program has existed for a long time. It's going to continue to exist. The PPP program is limited, and it's pretty much first come, first served. So I would recommend anybody who is interested in this program and who has the resources to deal with this program to apply as immediately as possible. You have to go through a bank that is SBA approved. There are about 1,800 across the country. I will find a way to get links out to the group to talk to you about who those banks are, but you can also just call your banker if I'm a little slow for you and figure out if they are an SBA approved loan provider. Obviously, if you have an SBA loan through a bank, you know the answer to that already. But if you don't bank with someone who's SBA loan approved, you are going to need to go and open an account, even if it's to be done online at this time for obvious reasons. You will have to go and open an account that at an SBA loan approved bank. And part of the reason for that is because banks, I can use a couple of examples. I've heard that Chase, Citibank, and TD Bank, for example, are only putting clients first in line. And if you don't open an account there and then are not a client, they will find a way to communicate with you via the online machine, et cetera, over time. But again, because it's a first come, first serve kind of thing, I really recommend anyone who can do this, go online with sba.gov, find the Payroll Protection Program, the PPP, figure out if your bank has it, or just call your bank directly and see if you can't get in line to get these loans that can transfer to grants. If you don't have employees, you can still apply as an independent contractor. The information about that is still somewhat unclear, but I would call anyway, as soon as possible. Let me see, I want to make sure I get you guys everything I can here. How to maximize your application after you talk to your bank, go online. There are all kinds of different ways that this is going to happen, but I'd still call your bank, just saying. The first thing you do is you take salary and wages capped at $100,000 per individual employee. So if, God willing, you are making more than that as an acupuncturist, just know that you're capped at your 100K. You still count, you just only count as 100K. So let me refine that. If you are making $250,000 a year as an acupuncturist, first of all, good for you. Second of all, you're still capped at $100,000 in terms of how you can report that income. Healthcare benefits paid by the employer as benefits for employees under a group plan do count, again, up to a cap of $100,000 a year per employee as part of the reporting that you could do. Again, always med it out. You'll see the application and it tells you. Other insurance paid by the employer for employee benefits, like dental, eye care, life insurance, other contributions, those things can also go into your calculation of what you can claim for this grant/loan program per employee. So let's say you're paying your employee $30,000 a year, but you're giving them another $10,000 a year in benefits. You can claim them as $40,000 as long as they do the appropriate documentation. And you can also include any contributions you've made to 401k plans if you do that kind of contribution for your employees. Applicants under PPP should take an average of the monthly costs from 2019 to calculate average monthly payroll. And use this figure, then multiply it 2.5 to the state amount claimed under PPP. That is the maximum PPP forgivable loan amount. That's pretty set in stone, so FYI. The 2 times multiplier for seasonal businesses or pure startups, and a pure startup in the SBA world is considered less than 6 months of operation, varies from the above. So you'll need to get further guidance on that from, again, your banker or digging online. I'm not quite up to speed on that yet. I will work on it, but if you are, again, seasonal or a pure startup, AKA, just to repeat it, less than 6 months in operation, you will want to get further clarification on that. Okay, let me just make sure. I really want to make sure that people understand what they need to present for any of these processes, and a sort of varying checklist. And again, I'll get this into some level of documentation as soon as the dust settles, but you really want to make sure that you've got your business names solid. So for instance, I operate as virtual operations, but sometimes I work with other businesses. I do DBAs, all kinds of other things. If you do that, make sure you're solid on what you're applying for. And if you have other DBAs, etc., you'll just want to have them handy if you get a call, any questions, any audits, because this is going to be audited later, trust me. You want, of course, your primary business address, contact name, title, email address, and phone number, and please include a cell number so that you understand, sorry, getting other traffic, so that you can be contacted if there are any questions. It's very important that you do that. You need your federal tax ID number, your website address. If you don't have one, you need to make a note that you do not have one. The nature of your business, including what's called an NAIC code, as shown at the last of your business filing. That is very important. The type of business and structure that you have, C Corp, S Corp, LLC, LP, LLP, sole proprietorship, independent contractor, you know, whatever you have been filing your taxes on through 2019, you must have. You need the date of your established business, and I would really recommend, if you've had to file, you know, any licensing that you have through the Secretary of State, I have to file every year for my just business, in addition to filing as a lobbyist with the Secretary of State to say, hey, I'm in business. So if any of you have done that, and or you have a Secretary of State filing for your initial licensure, that's a good way to have documentation of that in case you are asked. Your articles of incorporation, articles of organization, whatever your structure is, you need to have that. Any bylaws and operating agreements. For instance, if AAC were to file for this, and they well may, you can do it as a not-for-profit, but you're going to have all of your articles scanned and ready to go, because that's just a requirement, including your bylaws. Got to have your bylaws too if you're an organization that has them. Also, you need, if it's an ownership issue, like you own the company, or you're in charge of the organization, you will need a copy of that person's driver's license to show that they are a citizen. Business ownership information, really, if you've got more than one partner, then you just need a list of owners and percent of ownership of each. If any of you are public companies, you need your NYSE or NASDAQ symbol, FYI. For non-traded companies, you're going to need to provide social security numbers and EINs. So make sure you're, doing this in the most confidential way possible. And most banks, and, I work with a few companies that do this work as consultants, normally for larger companies, but you just want to make sure that you're, as securely as possible providing that information, but you will have to give it. There is not an option around that. You will need a 2018 return with attachments and scheduled as filed and signed. Has to be signed as well. So if you and your accountant both signed it, but you don't have one that has both signatures on it, you're going to need to reconcile that. And then if you have filed a 2019 report at this time, you will need to include that as well. If you haven't, you can go off 2018, but if your business was more positive in 2019, file your taxes like today. Just go on the easy file them so that you have that information, and then you can forward it. And that one you can send yourself. If you've ever done IRS easy file, doesn't always give you the best refunds, but right now you might get more out of this program. It just, that's a business decision for you to make. You will also need payroll documents. You need your 2019 payroll documents, quarterly payroll tax withholdings, should you do that. Copies of W-2 of payroll employees for 2019. 2020 payroll docs, same thing if you're going through today. Proof of employer payroll contributions. So as earlier discussed, that's health benefits under an employer group plan, other benefits paid by the employer for employee benefits, again, dental, eye care, health insurance, long-term care, long-term disability, and any contributions to 401k plans. You can also include payroll taxes paid by the employer. up to $100,000 per employee. And there's more. It's okay, I'm almost done. Financial statements. You will need your profit and loss statements and balance sheets for 2019 with a CPA certification as to accuracy and completeness. Audited statements, should you have been audited last year, are not required. Audited financials for 2019, should you, again, have been audited. Year-to-date financials for 2020 to the extent available. But trust me, document, document, document. If you haven't been doing your documents, don't even go there. You don't want to get audited and fined later. The fines are going to be substantial. That's pretty clear. But if you do have up-to-date QuickBooks or whatever that you're going to send to an accountant anyway, go for it. It'll get certified. You'll be fine. Proof of business losses, including lost income, expenses paid despite the shutdown, such as rent, equipment, stuff like that. Obviously, lack of patience in our particular case. This is not an exact science. For example, a business can compare a February-March 2019 income against the February-March 2020 income to show business losses, should you have the correct documentation for that. So right now, in terms of programs, that's about it. Obviously, my repeat of recommendation is, should the payroll protection program be appropriate for you, I would file for that first. If you want to do an emergency loan through the SBA, I mean, these are both through the SBA, I would wait to do that until you've done the PPP. However, if the payroll protection program is not right for you, even though 3.75 seems a little high for me as an interest rate right now, based on the Fed, it's what's available. And it's a lot better than running your business on credit cards at 24%. So I am not a lawyer. I am not an accountant. I am not a genius. I am very, very good at collecting information, and this is the information I currently have. Information on this is likely to change. There are likely to be more programs and or expanded programs. I will also say very honestly that in my communications with my Washington, D.C. contacts and federal, also my contacts with the governor's office and others, this shutdown is likely to not end in mid-April. It is much more likely to end in, gosh, if we're super lucky, late May, because it looks like our apex is going to be mid-May. So they want that curve of COVID virus to go down before they start reopening any body-to-body contact business and or taking PPEs. Now, if the PPE population increases in hospitals substantially, then getting back to business in the hospital setting will likely happen earlier, but right now that's so up in the air. I really don't want to sugarcoat this for anyone. I think it would be irresponsible of me, and I don't want people to panic, so I don't want to be irresponsible on the other side. But I really think we're looking at probably June 1 to June 15 at the earliest, and the latest is probably looking more like July 15th. And we're just trying to look how this little bugger bugs around, and once it's more contained and our testing is more rolled out and we can find out who among us is immune and who among us who actually has the virus, because taking the temperature, I mean, I have a friend in DC who had no fever at all and was diagnosed positive last week. I've been self-quarantined because I know I was exposed. This is all incredibly difficult. I understand that for everyone, but I want people to have accurate information so that the best planning available is possible. I will also repeat something I said recently in various calls to all kinds of people who called me from the community, board members and members, just, you know, members like. I have been asked by the DORA, the Department of Regulatory Affairs, to disseminate this information because they're swamped and they're working on getting emails out as fast as they can. But acupuncture is not a critical, we are essential So if you do have a life and limb issue that you feel you have to treat, the question's going to be, you're not supposed to be taking protective gear from hospital workers, but if you got some stuff left over and you can make it work with tarps and whatever, as long as that person is literally about to kill themselves or die, don't do it. If anything that you can do via telemedicine, you must do now, because you will, if you get caught, have your license pulled, probably permanently. You will be fined, and those fines are looking like they're going to be heavy. I haven't got specific numbers yet, but they're just right now throwing around numbers. So you'll probably lose a chunk of your cash flow, and you could, and probably will, because the Governor Polis is not screwing around here, be prosecuted with a misdemeanor, which is up to 60 days in jail and a permanent mark on your criminal record, which is going to make, if you lose your business and your cash flow, very difficult to get another job in any kind of setting. So, because even misdemeanors look bad on your record in the healthcare profession, as I'm sure all of you know. So that is all the truth. It is pretty ugly and pretty onerous, but at the same time, I have this feeling that for anyone who can make the time and take advantage of these programs and do the right thing by not practicing until we can practice again, right? You acupuncturists, you amazing, beautiful people, there is going to be a flood of people dying to come to your practices and get some healing. I promise you, I am one of them. I can't wait. Well, I can, because right now I have to be socially responsible, and I could get someone sick. And you probably have patients who don't even know they could get you sick, and therefore you wouldn't know you were getting other people sick. So don't just assume taking a temperature as someone walks in the door is an okay thing to do. It isn't. Not everyone gets a fever with this virus. They still haven't figured it out. Please, please, please do everything you can to stay alive in your business and to take care of yourselves as humans and practitioners, and find non-body to body contact ways, social distancing ways to care for your clients, like telemedicine. And I would also recommend, as a last note, one of the annoying things, call your malpractice insurance and make sure they know what you're doing and you know where they stand with what you're doing. Because I would just hate to see one of you amazing people get into a situation where you did something and weren't covered for it because you didn't know the answers. So I've given you all the answers I have right now. I will work to produce more of these so we can have more communication. And I'm working with the board to set up a separate email to field questions for anything that I've brought up today. Let me know through that venue. It'll come soon. We're all, chugging on it. As soon as that comes out, please let me know if you have further questions. I will absolutely do my best to answer them. I'm here for you. I care about you. And please care for yourselves and your family first. Take care. Bye-bye.